advertising and media for the last 20 years. And part of what we do and have done, we're journalists who have interrogated each of these various platforms and technologies as they've emerged. We have about 68 newsletters that go out daily and weekly, as well as 30 events here and in Europe. We've been coming to South by for the last 4 years to do at South by what we have been doing for 2 decades, which is look at the intersection of media and marketing with emerging platforms and technologies to see how they fit, how they really add to the conversation and the relationship between marketing and media. And that's what we're doing here. We especially love taking the bleeding edge, and obviously we filled the room with people who are interested in the bright, shiny object of this year, which is virtual reality and augmented reality. And we want to, and we have been asking throughout the year, whether these technologies really scale for marketers. Obviously it's immersive, obviously it's enjoyable, but really, is there a place for this with brands? Is it, obviously it's something that everybody loves once they get it on their head, but is this a scalable technology? It's immersive, yes, but it's also highly isolating, and it's expensive, and there's a large hardware overhead. This creates a tremendous set of challenges and opportunities for marketers, and that's what we wanted to talk about here in our first session on that we're calling a bit snarkily VR AR, the new storytelling or the old 3D. And we're going to have speakers from Honda, from National Geographic, and from Honda, from National. I'm sorry, I need my glasses. From Humana, Honda, and National Geographic. All are going to show, and they represent very different categories, and their uses of VR and AR in different categories. To take the lead on this panel, we have Connie Garrido, who is the partner at Nplay Media. She has been, from the agency side, working at a lot of emerging technologies. Her agency works with out-of-home communications. Please welcome Connie and our panel.
Getting up on this stool without killing myself. But I have an insurance person here, so we're going to be okay. There we go. All right. Welcome. So we're really excited with our panel today, and I'm just going to let them introduce themselves, give you a little bit of context of where they're working in this area, and then we'll go on to see some examples.
Great. My name is Michael Miller. I'm with Humana. I'm the head of sponsorship. And this is our first foray into the world of VR and 360. We did this around our partnership with the national parks. They celebrated their centennial. And we wanted to utilize this new technology really to talk about this idea that being outdoors is good for you. We're a health and wellness company, and we thought this would be a great way to engage consumers in a very unique and immersive way. So we're excited about it.
Hi, my name is John Moon. I manage a program called the Honda Developer Studio, and we've been working with AR and VR concepts in the vehicle and how they you might experience that in the vehicle. And we're excited to kind of show you how Honda thinks about AR and VR technology and how we might see it used to sell our products and also be incorporated in our products.
Hey everyone, Matt Zymet from National Geographic. I've been producing interactive experiences since CD-ROMs were the wave of the future. I've overseen for the last 10 years digital content and interactive experiences that extend the TV shows on the National Geographic channel. In the last year, I've been leading our charge into VR, 360, AR, looking forward to talking to you.
Great. So, if we look at a survey that just came out in December of 2016, it says that 3 out of 10 people really don't care about VR or AR, and most of them think that it's for gaming. Is this a hype?
Definitely within the gaming world, it's going to be huge. But I think from a marketing standpoint, from a brand standpoint, it gives companies like us the chance to create unique engagement opportunities that really tell a story, to reach consumers in a much broader way. So I don't think this is going to be a flash in the pan. I think it's going to be something that we're going to be able to utilize not just through VR, but through AR and through other technologies to really reach consumers in a different way.
John?
So we're experimenting with the technology in a variety of different areas, in product development, as manufacturing, in sales and marketing. And I think really we're at the stage of experimenting, and there will be technologies that make it, technologies that don't, and really a lot of those key learnings that need to kind of occur even on the content creation side of things, as well as what is valuable in terms of or what translates into something that's either meaningful from a story standpoint or meaningful from an application standpoint. And I think that's really where we're at right now. So, I think there, again, will be things that make it and things that don't.
Matt, your job is VR, so hopefully it's not a hype. So what are your thoughts?
Well, we'll see after this if that's still the case. Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think gaming is going to drive a lot of it. To me, the hype is the time scale. 2016 was the year of VR, not so much. This year is going to be the year of VR. We'll see. As folks probably know, the headsets didn't quite sell the way headset manufacturers were hoping. I think that a lot of people are still going to be, and I'm sure we'll get into this, will be interacting with VR and AR experiences through their phones. Right, the more kind of democratized platform approach. So we'll see. I don't think it's hype. I think this is a platform that's going to be around for a while. It's just, I think, a little bit more of a slow burn to get there.
Excellent. Well, let's go into some of the examples that our panelists have. Mark, if we can cue up the Humana video, and we'll see some of the applications that these marketers are using for it.
You want to check out the national parks today?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
At Humana, we've been really thrilled with our partnership with the National Park Foundation from day one. We've been able to really get across the message that Humana plus parks equals health and talk about the health benefits of the national parks.
In 2016, the Bring the Parks to You campaign continued the message of Humana plus parks equals health, resulting in a remarkable 200 million total impressions generated across digital, media, and experiential platforms.
We're creating a new experience for our customers, our associates, our friends, where we will build an experience to inspire people to get out and get active.
Spending time in the great outdoors has benefits for physical and mental health. Research suggests that Americans will spend approximately 93% of their lives indoors because of their busy lifestyles. As the official healthcare partner of the National Park Service Centennial, Humana wanted to motivate and inspire boomers to improve their health by getting active outdoors and finding their park. As part of the Bring the Parks to You campaign, Humana created an experiential tour, bringing an immersive park experience to the local level through a variety of community events. The traveling activation saw over 21,000 impressions in 24 key markets throughout the U.S. The experience set out to inspire people to get out and get active in our nation's parks through 360-degree virtual reality videos of Joshua Tree and Yosemite National Parks, viewed through Samsung Gear VR headsets.
Yeah, go and put it on just like a pair of goggles.
I mean, in Joshua Tree, in the virtual reality setting, I just loved looking up at those stars, as it was becoming nighttime in the sunset. That was incredible. It made me want to really be there.
You literally see everything that's going on around you. You can even turn around and see what's behind you. It's an amazing experience.
Definitely made me want to go and be a little more outdoorsy and check out these parks for myself.
Humana also conducted media outreach in each market, earning 23 million impressions as a result of 50 placements throughout the experiential tour, with an additional 8 million impressions resulting from amplification through Outbrain.
Thanks to the collaborative efforts of Humana and the National Park Service, now you can.
Yes, 100 parks we have right here in Chicago.
Clips from the national parks were also distributed for online viewing through Facebook 360 and YouTube 360. A total of 110 pieces of content were part of a targeted Bring the Parks to You social campaign that garnered over 38 million impressions and over 11 million engagements, at nearly a 50% engagement rate, resulting in Humana's most engaging social campaign to date. As part of the Bring the Parks to You program, Humana challenged associates to do their part by volunteering in a local park. As a result, associates logged over 17,000 volunteer hours in 850 parks throughout the United States in 2016, leading the way in showing their commitment to our nation's parks and their own health and well-being.
You experience the joy and of being at a national park. You know, we want that to be the catalyst to get people out, to get active and to experience the national parks.
Michael, you want to give a little context?
So this program was part of a comprehensive marketing approach to leverage our partnership with the national parks. The VR and 360 content was one component of a comprehensive integrated plan to help us generate paid, owned, and earned media. And really to express this idea that being outdoors is good for you. You know, and most people understand that when you're outdoors, when you're walking, you're hiking, when you're looking at a tree, you're engaging in things that are good for your overall health and well-being. So we wanted to utilize the 360 and VR content to inspire people, to get them to explore local parks, state parks, but really to make it part of their overall health and well-being. And what we saw was that the engaging content, the unique content, really helped us build a initial relationship with consumers so that we could then market to them through other types of activities. So we're excited about how we're going to be able to utilize this in physician offices and other locations, but it was a great program for us, and we're looking forward to where it's going to go next.
Can we have a Honda's video, please?
Welcome back, builders of tomorrow. It's a pleasure to have you here in the Honda Advanced Design Studio. Inspired by your ideas and Lego creations, the Honda design team has been hard at work expanding and visualizing a whole system for transportation in 2050.
Here is the world of the future. Let me tell you the story, right?
The future we imagine for Los Angeles is called the age of magnetism. And in the city of that future, we envision a mobility system that is modular like Lego. The system starts with a pod connected to your house that you can live and work in, but can also detach and take you anywhere you want. Guided by Asimo, the Honda robotic AI, you can travel on a clean energy, high-speed magnet rail system, or descend to a historic part of Los Angeles where your pod can be part of the celebration of car culture. The pod will adapt to an amphibious mode, which we call the manta ray, where the interior layout will realign and the exterior will adapt to become a porpoising vehicle. Like a roller coaster, it will dive and surface on a trip from San Pedro to Catalina. Outfitted with AR display technology, you can be entertained and inspired along the way with the immersive aquatic experience. Traveling to the forest, the pod will dock and rearrange to work with a tree walker machine, which will be like a mobile treehouse, able to navigate and explore the forest with a minimally invasive footprint.
We've taken the 3D files from Honda and using Google Tango, we presented them as mixed reality 1:1 scale in the studio. The Tango device scans and maps the indoor environment, allows the Honda designers and the kids to walk around and even through the life-size 3D model. The experience is powerfully intuitive, giving the user complete freedom of movement.
The age of magnetism, AI, and the modular mobility system will allow the builders of tomorrow to live in perfect harmony with nature.
So I'm going to narrate part of this part of the. So this is a project that we did together for with DreamWorks Animations, in which we've created a platform called Dream Drive. This allows us to create, basically bring VR into the vehicle, and we explored a number of different areas which content could be generated. So in this case, we're creating kind of points of interest. Here we've created a mini game within the application and within the platform, utilizing content from their Trolls movie. And in this case, you're capturing trolls as you're driving. And this was shown at CES as a standalone project, but the project is actually to bring VR into the car Now, in the case of bringing VR into the car, where you're talking about very expensive hardware to do that. But as we kind of look at the way that technology is evolving and improving, and if we start looking at things like mobile devices that can actually fulfill on AR and VR concepts, we're able to look at how that content could potentially now be in the car. So my project is really to look at how do we create new experiences in the vehicle. The way that we do this at the studio is to really look at platforms that we can leverage and have content creators and marketers leverage sooner than what it normally takes to do car development. Car development normally, and I think why you don't see a lot of folks working with us is it's usually a 3 to 5 year process. But now what we're focused on is, can we bring in platforms that can allow developers and content creators to do things at the pace that they expect to release product.
We have the Nat Geo video.
I'm Alan Olsen. I'm from North Jutland, Denmark. I'm a Viking. We aren't role-playing. You're not going to go out there if you're afraid of getting hurt. Trained for years to fight these battles. I'm a spearman. My brothers are defending me. We have our roles. We train formations. I have to say I'm lucky that the gods are with me so far and there haven't been any serious injuries. Nothing broken, I haven't lost an eye or a tooth. This is a way of life. We are us back in time. We are us without the pressure of the modern world. I think the society we live in today, it's stressful. And I think that's what we're looking for. We're looking to get away from this synthetic society of iOS updates, and we have to have the new one of everything, and stress, rat race, and run back and forth, and how much money is on my account, and back down to earth, back down to what we were doing as humans for tens of thousands of years. Really be involved is a true dedication. I mean, it requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of research. We try to wear historically correct clothes. Everything we have is handmade, preferably by someone we know. We sleep on furs and skins, and we're cooking like in the old days. And this is a mecca for experimental archaeology. To really understand it, you have to live it. Even for a week or two, take the clothes on, get in the tent, feel the rainfall, adapt to these things that you otherwise wouldn't have to adapt to in a modern world.
Thanks. So that's the 360 video. That's what I like to call flatified video. Hopefully that you guys sense of how that would work in True 360. If you want to see it in 360, you can go to youtube.com/NatGeo, where we've got that and a bunch of other 360 stuff. But that, for select cover stories of the magazine, we've been creating 360 video sort of mini doc companions. This month, the cover story is all about Viking culture, a lot of things that are just being found out through new archaeological findings. And the magazine actually does cover the Wollin Viking Battle Reenactment Festival. So it's a really nice direct tie-in to what's in the physical magazine. And doing something like that, Nat Geo takes you to places you've never been before. We have a great history of exploring subcultures, and for 130 years, we've sent our explorers and photographers and grantees out to bring back amazing parts of the world and pile it up on the other side of that yellow rectangle for our audience to see. But with this technology, with VR, 360 video, and as we push into AR, we can ask you to step through that yellow rectangle with us and go out into the field. And that's the idea behind videos like this. Most of what we've done to date has been 360 video production. A year and a half ago, we really didn't have too much. And our strategy has really been to build out a premium bench of this kind of content and establish ourselves as a premium destination for 360 video. And as we talk, we'll share more about some of the other stuff in VR. We have an activation here at South by with HoloLens. We've done some other really big VR out-of-home activations and some kind of great marketing extensions for some of our shows using Google Cardboard, but I'm sure we'll have a chance to talk about that.
Thank you, Matt. So if we look at the entree into what you're doing with VR and AR, obviously it's all right now, you're in experimental stage, as you said, John, and you're going to try to see how it fits into the overall marketing storytelling. But so when you did these, what were some of the challenges that you had, Michael, in terms of faced as you were going through the process?
Cost. It's very, very expensive to get highly stylized 360 video. The technology is not there yet to get user-generated content. There are 360 cameras that are in the marketplace, and several are out there that you can purchase, but the content that comes from those is not the best that we would use from a brand marketing standpoint. So cost is a barrier right now, but as the technology improves, you'll be able to hopefully get user-generated content as well. One of our ideas was to shoot this amazing 360 content, let consumers experience it both via our social channels as well as the VR headsets, and then encourage other people to, especially park rangers across national parks, to shoot their own favorite 360 images of their favorite trails. So we actually went out and purchased some of these cheaper cameras and went out and tested it, and it's just not the best content that we would want to put out there for our brand. But it'll change. It'll change.
Yeah, so keeping the integrity of the brand is a challenge, and I think when we were speaking, Matt, you was indicating obviously beautiful high-end that you flatify into be able to distribute it. What are the challenges that you're coming about? Obviously, you want to mainstream your distribution, so.
Yeah, we find a lot of the same issues as doing this at scale. Those are expensive pieces of 360 video to do. And we're not even shooting stereoscopically, which really ups the cost in post. We've done some of that. That, if you go check that out on YouTube, is not, it's monoscopic. So it's just figuring out how to scale the cost. Honestly, just because of who we are, each shoot at that level is kind of like a moonshot. I mean, that was going to Poland. We had another shoot in Borneo. We have a team just coming back from Antarctica. And so just getting to the places that National Geographic tells its kind of stories is an expensive proposition. And so we're looking on the production side in terms of how we shoot 360 and how we handle post, how to find economies of scale and bring the costs down. We've looked at consumer grade cameras too and have the exact same, the Samsung Gear 360 is great. It's going to enable lots of folks to do lots of really cool stuff. The Nikon Key Mission 360, a little bit better quality, but it's the same thing. I mean, they like to say it's 4K video, but the part that you're looking at any given moment is like DVD quality. And we really want to make sure that, for the expense of going all around the world, that we're really capturing stuff at a high level of quality. So we haven't cracked it yet. I mean, we look at our colleagues in the industry, like New York Times and their daily 360, which I think we all know they do with the Samsung Gear 360, and those are great little moments. And we're trying to find our version of that. How do we kind of find that economy of scale so we can go out and shoot and generate this content on a regular basis without these being massive productions?
But if you think about where 360 static imagery, just photography was, so it wasn't the best content. But now you look at it today, there's a lot of ways that you can shoot 360 static images. Video will hopefully
It's all
get there.
about evolution, right? It
and
goes into...
Absolutely, and actually the consumer grade cameras are actually pretty great for just 360 static photos.
John, you have a couple of different challenges because of your product development, so you're putting this in a car, and which is already making me motion sickness. So tell us about what you face and then the power suck that these technologies are for the car.
Yes, so we see ourselves more on the technology side of this and being able to support content creators in terms of developing new content or new experiences. And that's really where we're at. And there's specific challenges in the vehicle when you're speaking about VR, in which the motion of the vehicle, there's the motion of the virtual environment and where someone might be looking, as well as now you have the additional challenge of a vehicle potentially moving. So we're working on those technologies. We want to be able to supply those technologies to improve those experiences, and that's kind of where we see it. We also see the challenge of bringing in a full VR, a high-end VR rig like an Oculus or an HTC Vive. It typically requires a lot of power. It requires a lot of setup in terms of making that work. But we see that as making its way to being lower and lower cost. We see cardboard or mobile improving in quality. So we're preparing for that intersection in which we believe we can actually provide something. And really what we're looking at is a platform that allows others to bring those technologies into our car. We realize that we're great at making cars and the technology in those vehicles. And we realize that entertainment in the rear of the car is changing, or for passengers. And usually it's a driver and passengers. Maybe one day it'll be just passengers. So understanding how we can have this interactive technology as we support passengers in their travels and how to entertain folks while that's happening. And in some cases, you're looking at content that is now going to be experienced in different ways. We've all had folks that read books or other things and maybe feel motion sick. In the case of VR, the improving technologies have helped improve that. And actually, if we do it right, it'll actually be a better experience, or an experience that you've never had before in experiencing that.
Michael, you were telling me in terms of you had this great experience and you took it out and it's modular, and now you go to medical conferences and the doctors are looking to see. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts on the next iteration of usage for VR AR.
So when we developed this program last year, this was under the idea of bringing the parks to our consumers, to markets that we care about. So people in Florida may never get a chance to go see Yosemite or Joshua Tree. So we wanted to create an environment that allowed our markets, our consumers, and just communities in general to experience this idea that being outdoors is good for them by using the great vista of the national parks. So we were very successful through our experiential tour as well as our social media last year using the 360 content. And now what we're doing this year is we're utilizing the exact same content, but we're going to medical conferences and other locations. And we're engaging doctors now to see what this content looks like. There are studies that actually show when people use VR in certain situations, it actually improves their overall health and wellness, mental wellness, biometric data. And doctors are now actually seeing this as a way that if they bring this technology into their practice, it just becomes another part of their process of how they're going to be dealing with their patients. So we're now letting our doctors at all these conferences see what the technology looks like and then express with them how they can utilize it within their practice with their patients. So that's probably where it'll evolve next.
Now, John, you have obviously the product development and in-car entertainment, but Honda has also had a couple of different things, as we saw with the Lego, and I think you wanted to explain a little bit about that, so this is an opportunity. But, and also, you get a giving program where you brought VR to sick children. You want to tell us a little bit about why Honda did that? Sure. So we focus on actually in addition to making the vehicle, we also need to sell and market the vehicle as well. So across the organization, we're looking at AR and VR as technologies that can help do that. In the case of marketing, we've had some programs where we looked at how we can communicate what our values are, what Honda's values are, to the audience, to an audience, a new audience, and allow them to explore that. So we actually created an activation during the holidays in which we brought kind of a sleigh ride experience to children, to a children's hospital. And I think really the point for us is we really want to use VR and AR as tools that allow us to express what our values are, whether we're selling the car or buying the car, or someone who's buying the car, or within product that we're creating. So we want to create those technologies that allow the storytellers that we interact with and the consumers that we interact with to be able to understand that. And in the case of the AR activation here, it was more of a design process where we looked at how we translate someone's ideas. So in this case, it was actually with children who built Lego models. And we took those Lego models and the concepts and ideas in those models and actually went through the formal design process of how would we actually create a vehicle based on the ideas that were expressed there. And then we normally would have sketches or physical models, but they would be smaller models just based on cost. But now we were able to build a full-size or give that immersive experience of a full-size model with AR, and that really takes it to the next level in terms of understanding what we might be creating. And we're looking at that in manufacturing and visual design processes internally as well, because that is that communication step that takes place that is largely harder to get someone to understand as you just use the tools that you have. It also saves us in terms of what those other processes may cost us, right? So ultimately, there's actually a potential for us to save cost versus being a very expensive bill. We have other expensive bills too, to make that process happen faster and communicate more. Yeah, thank you. So it looks like the real payoff comes when you create experiences that are authentic to your brand and meaningful to your consumer. Matt, you mentioned that there's an activation here. I think it's about Einstein that Nat Geo is doing. What was the genesis of that?
Sure. We have a big activation here. The Nat Geo Further Base Camp. Further is the core sort of word at the heart of our recent rebrand. And we have a big show coming up in April called Genius with Jeffrey Rush playing Einstein, and there's another fellow named Johnny Flynn playing a young Einstein. Ron Howard and Brian Grazer are producing. It's actually the first time Ron Howard's directed anything for TV. He's directed several episodes. And one of the really cool things in the show is seeing through Einstein's eyes as he has these sort of thought experiments that led him to the theory of relativity, or understanding that time is relative. And you know, through really cool CGI, you see like suns floating in the space that he's in as he's sort of conceptualizing these things. So it seemed like a natural for augmented reality. And we really wanted to, or even mixed reality. I think they're pretty interchangeable, at least in this, in how we approached it. So we really wanted to do something with AR here at South by as part of this activation. So we built out on the Microsoft HoloLens this experience that lets you go inside Einstein's mind and see from his perspective these thought experiments. It's pretty cool. I definitely would ask you guys if you're interested, go check it out.
So we look at it, obviously, we talked a lot about the VR, and obviously it's an immersive experience where you know, you're all encapsulated, but you know, there's cost prohibitive, it's difficult. So AR seems a little bit more tangible and such. So what works? What you know, what in your estimation works in terms of that? Anyone in the others?
Well, yeah, so like for these activations, for things like what I was just describing, I mean, we've done these high-end, you know, in-headset kind of things for these big out-of-home activations. There's the HoloLens thing that we've got here. At the end of last year for our show Mars, we did a big activation up in New York that used virtual reality tied to almost theme park rides for our show Mars to simulate like landing on Mars. So you'd don a headset, and this massive cable robot would fling you around at like 1.5 Gs, and it was all synced to what you were seeing in headset. So, and there was a lot of other stuff there as well. We also had a zero-gravity treadmill that you wore a Gear VR while you were on it. So while you were kind of walking across the surface, that was walking on Mars, by the way. So while you're walking across the surface of Mars, you're actually seeing something that matches with that experience. And so we've done these high-end headset experiences for big out-of-home events, but in terms of our editorial content, the media, the audience just isn't there yet. We did a big digital experience as part of our content marketing efforts for Mars online that included VR simulations, games, landing a rocket on Mars, driving a rover around Mars. And we built that primarily for Google Cardboard. I mean, that's the most distributed headset platform to date, and we still saw relatively low usage on that. The biggest usage was sort of magic window through people's phones, and then on desktop after that. But because it was content marketing, we had to build it to reach as many people as possible. So we're not quite there yet with like the big high-end headset experiences.
And they are different. I mean, the idea of AR and VR, you use them differently for different responses and different engagements with consumers. VR is truly immersive, gives the person the ability to feel and experience what you're trying to showcase. AR is just another way, and or mixed reality gives you another way to engage consumers in a different light. So it just depends on what you're trying to achieve and what you're trying to get the reaction of the consumers, at least from a marketing standpoint.
So where do you think that brands should start? Because obviously we say that, you know, timing is an interesting thing, because actually VR, AR has been around for many, many years. It's just next big thing. But if a brand wants to go in, what are the things that you would say that they should consider and as they're starting to go into it? John?
Well, I guess for our perspective, we're a little ahead of that curve in getting started, and we're, I think, working with a lot of partners to help experiment with that, and I think really it's focusing on, you know, what are those things that you want to communicate, knowing what the technology can actually do, and if you can start with the ideas or the concept that you want to communicate or show, that really helps drive what you might want to achieve. So for example, in the case of Acura, we created an experience called Mood Roads. It was somewhat AR, VR, I guess it was a little more, just the overall experience. You know, for us, the experience of driving a vehicle is very unique. And for us is something that we hold very dearly in terms of how that experience gets expressed. And so, but we think it's also a very emotional pursuit as well in terms of how to translate that experience. So when we looked at wanting to do something which we wanted the person to experience that, we actually put them in an entire enclosure and mapped out the virtual drive and linked the emotional experience to what they were also experiencing at the same time. And that was a very expensive activation as well. But it really had to, we wanted to create that experience because we realized if we just were to throw them in VR and drive them around, that wouldn't translate into what our values are, what we wanted to communicate. So I would say if you're looking at something, really ask yourself, what's going to be communicated? What am I trying to get the person to experience? And work with folks to try to do that. We're looking at that in terms of the technology we're providing in the car. We're trying to make it more accessible, trying to bring those costs down as we work with other partners as well.
Michael, if you look at, obviously, your VR was part of an overall integrated plan. Social media plays a lot, right? Because obviously what you want to do is extend. Talk a little bit about how all the pieces work together and what you hope to get from the experience to then farm out your message.
So it started with this idea of wanting to reach our consumer base in markets and let them experience our partnership with the national parks, but to convey this message that being outdoors is good for you. So it started with that core idea of we wanted to engage our consumers in our markets and bring this idea to life in a very unique way. So the 360 and VR content was just one way that we could do it. The experiential VR tour was a fantastic way that consumers could actually be at these national parks, and then we pushed that content out. We chunked it up in 20-second little videos and put that on our social channels. That's to reach the mass scale and a large audience. And then through that, we then created additional content beyond a litany of other content just to keep the conversation going throughout the entire centennial year of the national parks. We also did a lot of other things around our partnership. We created a park prescription program where doctors were actually writing prescriptions so that consumers could actually go to a local park. So we created a lot of different elements around this entire campaign. And the 360 was a very, very important part, but it wasn't the only element that we wanted to bring out to the marketplace. But it allowed us to have a lot of content to engage consumers throughout the entire year. So.
And if you look at it from the Nat Geo's perspective, obviously your challenge, you want to get out there, so you flatify and such, but it doesn't really give the overall experience. How do you look in terms of what do you want from the social aspect of your initiatives?
You mean like on social media
platforms?
platforms?
Yeah, social media platforms.
Well, so a lot of the 360 video we've created has been in partnership with Facebook, and we've seen really great uptake on that platform. And in fact, while we're looking at creating our own app like many media companies have, we get pretty massive distribution scale for our 360 video on YouTube and Facebook. And so just those partnerships really help get us out there. And we've seen, we haven't seen a video that we've put up on Facebook that didn't do less than millions of views. And you can see from the way people are sharing and commenting on them that there's definitely a community forming around that. One of the kind of cool things is, I think for us, for I'm sure a lot of you guys, it's like, all right, 360 video, we've seen that, but it's still novel to consumers. I don't know how much longer that's going to be the case, but it's definitely, I can't tell you, even with the latest video we've posted, how many people are like, oh my God, I was like looking at this and I realized I could move my phone and that there's more. So just that idea that this is some new medium, I think folks are still kind of absorbing that. But that's also why we're looking at the high-end headset stuff, because I think at some point people are going to be like, all right, we've seen 360 video, that's part of the stuff that brands are putting out, but we definitely want to start looking at what's next.
So it sounds like, basically you have to go back down to your marketing principles. What's your brand? What do you, and where do you want to go? What do you want, the experience that you want to create for your consumers? So I'm sure that we'll see exciting things from you, and for many others, it's fun. There's a lot coming in the next few years, obviously.
The nice, you have to figure out I think for 360 video for VR, how does this work for your brand? For us, our brand is all about exploring the world, and it would almost be crazy if we weren't kind of going big in this. We want to bring people out into the field with us, and this is a medium that allows us to do it.
Excellent. I think we want to open it up to the audience for questions for the panelists.
We have microphones in each of the aisles. For any of you who has a question, work your way to the microphone. Please tell us who you are, and if you're with a company, who you're with. Start with Joe. You're there first. Go ahead.
Hi. I'm Joe Mandisi. I'm with MediaPost. So I have a question for the panel, but also for Connie, if you could answer this, because you're responsible for placing brands in front of people in the real world. So it's awesome what you guys can do, but do you think about what you shouldn't be doing? And, my question is, I've not really heard consumers saying they want to see more brand impressions in their world. And if you think about it, what you're doing is creating incremental impressions that didn't exist before, arguably in great ways, where you can experience Vikings and other things, but do we really need more brand impressions in the world? And how should we be gatekeeping AR and VR experiences for consumers?
From our standpoint, we didn't do this to increase brand impressions. We did it because we wanted to drive engagement with an idea, which is that being outdoors is good for you. We're a health and wellness company, so we had to make sure we were communicating a specific message. So if you're going at it just to drive impressions, I would agree. It's not going to be effective. If you're trying to create content that becomes engaging, that the consumers want, then the brand linkage, so long as it's true and honest, it will not generate bad feelings with the consumers. It has to be proper engagement with the consumer that they understand and get it.
Because this stuff is cool, right? So you're like, wow. It's all of a sudden you have clients come and they're like, oh, we want to do something with that and that, and just wow. And you really need to go back to the core of what a creative consumer. You need to respect, like it started in this morning when the introductory speaker said, you need to respect what they're going to want to see.
Yeah, in one of our demos that we showed basically interacting with points of interest as someone's driving down the street, and that's really where we're potentially being able to look at adding some additional an additional way to interact with actual retail locations as you kind of move down. But we're for us looking at, well, how do we interact with the world? How do we provide those opportunities, and what can happen within that journey of where that person might be going? And I think that's really where, for us, partnering with folks to understand how should they interact if they're experiencing this in AR or VR in a vehicle. Like right now, the way that you do that is potentially through the navigation screen if I need to go to a gas station or a restaurant. In the case of now, you have multiple passengers. Usually they're looking at their phone or doing something of that nature, and maybe it's a mobile experience. But there's new opportunities, and as we start surfacing those things with those technologies. So for us, looking at that and understanding that, I think is still open, and it's the same as almost the beginning of mobile when we started thinking about how do we do mobile advertising.
Let's start over at the far side of the room, and we'll work our way across.
Hi, I'm Kiera. I work on the design team at Georgetown University in DC. And it sounds to me like you all probably come from pretty large teams where you work, especially National Geographic, I imagine. So my question is surrounding implementation strategies for AR, VR for smaller teams. And is that even something that a small team can handle, or should we outsource an AR, VR project?
Our team is not as big as you'd think.
Oh.
we're looking to build up our internal capabilities. We have the benefit of working with a lot of great production companies, and we've brought those in to work on pieces like this with us. But especially for like a small team, and this is sort of the model that we're looking at. This is the early days of this medium, and I think you want to get your hands dirty and experiment. I mean, get like a Hero rig or even a Gear 360, because it's not really about the technology and the cost of post and all of that. It's how do you tell stories in this medium, and I don't think you're going to. First of all, we're all still figuring that out, and I think it's fun to be a part of that conversation. Like, what are the storytelling kind of elements? It's not frame to frame to frame like it is in video or film. You're curating spaces, and what does that mean, and how does that change how you think about telling a story? I think it's just vitally important to just dive in and start to experiment.
Let's get another one. Let's start. Go ahead, sir.
Hi there. I'm the founder of Blend Media. We're working with major brands to help them make 360 video campaigns easy. We've built a tool, a web VR tool that's a drag and drop, and you can create a 360 campaign in 60 seconds. We built a large premium catalog.
Question,
Oh, so I was just giving some context. So my question was, to what extent are you focusing on 360 rather than VR at this stage?
When we approached it, we wanted to utilize both. We wanted the VR to give us something that was an experiential, immersive program, but we needed the content that then we could push out through social. So we looked at it as we needed both and we wanted both.
So just as a quick follow-up, so you're creating
right, hands, and you've got full agency, but it's a pretty cool medium, and we've certainly focused there as a company, as a media organization that's all about the image. I mean, 360 video will always be a part of our mix, but we're eager to plant our flag in more immersive experiences. The example I like to think of, like our expeditions travel business. I mean, it would be amazing in like a full VR game engine to explore a LiDAR scan, Machu Picchu, while having a Nat Geo explorer or expert in your ear telling you what you're seeing, while you get to kick a rock over or move a stone to see the inscription behind it and create a real sense of presence at these places, or suddenly do an overlay and see what it was like in its heyday with people milling about and literally use VR as a time machine. I think there's all kinds of really amazing things that we could do, but then you start to get into game design and you start to the production costs go up, and we're eager to fly. We're also cautiously watching just how quickly the headset penetration is and how quickly those audiences are growing.
Over here,
Thank you.
Katie Kamosi had a video for Greenpeace US. Matthew, could you talk a little bit about the criteria you look at of a cover story to decide if it gets a 360 mini doc?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. We only started these not that long ago, and as you can imagine, the magazine itself is planned quite a far way in the future. So with the first few of these we've done, Vikings being the latest, we did with Nat Geo photographer Brian Scarry exploring reefs in the Caribbean. We did one at an orangutan sanctuary in Borneo. All of these for cover stories in the magazine. But for these first rounds, it was really intersecting with things that were already in flight. Now we're being a little bit more choosy. We're also producing content outside of just with the magazine. So for our Facebook partnership, for instance, and that's about stories that are just through a National Geographic lens. One of the ones that we're going to release in the next week or two is going on a training mission with the guys that do mountain rescue in the Spanish Alps. So helicopter right next to the cliff face and rappelling down to, so really kind of great thrilling stuff. And then the very next one is going to be looking at one of the last great pieces of roadside Americana, Weeki Wachee Springs in Florida, where they still put on, and have for 70 years, an underwater synchronized mermaid show. And we go into the tank with the mermaids. We meet a mermaid that was there like 60 years ago, and she's come back. So it depends. But it's really about covering the gamut of the things that National Geographic looks at.
Sir.
Hi, I'm John. You talked about why VR is expensive in terms of the tech and the travel and the photographers. Could you come up with like a top 3 obstacles or biggest pain points when producing AR? Is there anything that's hard other than talented engineers?
We're definitely pushing in AR. We haven't done a ton yet. The activation here is one of the bigger pieces we've done for our show, Killing Reagan. We did an AR app that if you put like a dollar bill or down on the table, the Hilton where Reagan was shot opens up in front of you. It's sort of like history on the table in front of you. And those 30 seconds where Hinckley fired off 6 rounds, you can trace the paths of the bullets and really kind of do a moment-by-moment breakdown. It was kind of an experiment, but it's an interactive experience that you couldn't do with any other medium. So we've been experimenting. I wish I could answer your question a little bit better, but we haven't really gone there yet in a way where I can tell you, here's the cost-effective way to do it. But the Reagan thing was an experiment that we did for relatively low cost.
Was there one challenge that you had? Was it difficult to find somebody to map it, or?
There's like a little boutique kind of firm that we work with, and we kind of spec'd out exactly how we wanted the AR application to work. In terms of the HoloLens activation here, that was like a bit of a bigger production, so it was working with our agency to pull all the right folks in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Over here.
Stephen Posner from Future Lighthouse. We're a storytelling VR studio in Madrid and LA. 2 questions, both short. Do you think VR will become a mass medium? And if so, what's your time frame?
Not this year.
We were talking about this earlier, that there are certain industries, certain areas that VR is a natural complement to what they're doing. Entertainment, sports, gaming, obviously. The idea where you're trying to take a fan or a consumer and get them immersed into that event is where it's going to become very, very mainstream. Think about a sporting event. Think about a NFL football game and the ability to see a play from a 360 vantage point. That camera that flies across at the top of the screen will be a 360 camera. The ability to look at the goal line, to watch a touchdown from all angles. At a concert, to be able to be at the concert though you're sitting at home. So there's certain areas, real estate, travel, there's certain industries that will become very, very commonplace and mainstream. Other areas, like insurance, maybe not so. But within a doctor's office, you could sit there, you're talking to your doctor, and you've got a broken arm. He can give you a 360 visual through an iPad. So there will be places that will become very, very commonplace.
A recent survey from Forrester said it's 5 years away.
I mean, who would not want to go? Who would not want to go to a doctor's office and take a journey through the colon? You know, a VR. Yeah, but it'd be fabulous.
Yeah. Sign me up.
I think there's again the application and what it can communicate. And so if you're trying to tell a longer narrative or a longer story, I think your costs end up going up, but you're beginning to try to focus folks into a particular experience, and you want that to be as high quality as possible. But I think there are things where you can communicate some things most powerfully and effectively when you're using AR or VR technology, or in a way that is totally unique. And I think those are the areas that the technology will gravitate to first, as you're saying, some sports areas, things like that. But even in when we look at the technology, you know, how many people read your owner's manual? It's probably no one. But to communicate the high-level aspects of a vehicle and very quickly do that in a way that's can be experienced or utilized. The information there is much more accessible. It's also very quick, and I think the challenge is it is a multidiscipline media activity. So we talk about challenges. You're maybe talking about video and interactivity and unity and a large number of interactive technologies that you have to bring together to make it work. And a lot of these things can't be done by just one person. You need to actually bring in a team to make some of these things happen.
Sir, we have time for one more. Go ahead.
Ulrico here from Deep VR in South Africa. So I'm really interested in we're talking about the future of these formats today. I'm interested in the cost monetization models that need to back up VR and AR into the future. So you guys have all brought up, and rightly, the cost of producing, campaigns and elements. Right now, a lot of those are sitting in the marketing silos. And so that's kind of an easy play in a way because the marketing function has budget and they need to engage consumers. But moving into the future, how would you all want to implement costing models into your own businesses to support the expensive development? So for example, Honda might want to develop in-car entertainment to sell more vehicles to moms that want their kids to shut up on long road trips. Nat Geo, many different departments. What do you feel you'd want to achieve in these businesses and what change in the ecosystem?
Well, I mean, we're working on figuring that out. I mean, just on the media side of things, even with marketing efforts, which is like a cost center, we still build stuff to sell. And so we look to defray the cost by selling sponsorships against things. And we've done a few of those so far. And if you look at what other folks in this space are doing, New York Times, Discovery Channel, there's integrated brand sponsorship within the 360 video that they're doing. There's branded content that's distributed along with it. And that's just on the video side. I mean, I think figuring out a model for these like more high-end interactive full VR experiences, that's probably going to be more transactional in terms of freemium models, the kind of things that we've seen in existing app stores. But I think that's a nut that we're trying to crack right now because we really see this medium as being important for the kind of storytelling that we want to do. But we're just finishing up with the experimental stage, and now we're getting to the P&L stage where we need to figure out how to make money with it.
And you have to be careful because if you look at the backlash that McDonald's had from the Happy Meal thing where they put ads on it, there's a fine balance between giving your consumer an experience and such and then bombarding them with, things that can then work into monetization models. So it's a very fine line.
We have to break, and next year, for all we know, we may be audience members may be able to stream this in VR across Facebook and Twitter. Thank you, Connie, Michael, John, and Matthew. Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a half-hour break in our